All right, hey everybody. I have a quick break in a ski trip to do a video. The IPC, they wanted to change the rules and start looking at fixing rules, and I explained my thought process whenever we did it with the APA, and I don't think I did a good job explaining it, so I'm going to make a video, and then they'll have that, and then maybe the APA people, if they're interested, will know why their rules are like they are. Also, this video is not going to be fun and exciting, so if you're not interested in the depths of the purposes of the rules, it's not for you. But anyways, whenever we saw that we needed rule changes, the rulebook problems that we had were vast and had lots of different angles, and it was a big ask to try and figure out how to make this better. We needed to redo the whole thing, and we didn't know where to start. So we went back to basics, kind of a first principles approach, try to figure out, break everything down to nothing, and then build it up slowly with things that we know are right or we think are right, and then maybe that'll give us some guidance. So that's what we did. We tried to figure out what the purpose of the rules are. And after looking at all the rules, I had three categories. The first category of rules was to describe the game, to explain, how many minutes are in a chukka and what a lineup looks like and things like that. These aren't whistleable offenses. These are something to just describe the game. The second reason for the rules, after you've described the game, we're building it up from scratch, remember, we've described this game, we let people go out and play it, and we see people are cheating, obviously, and we don't have rules against that. So we need a whole set of rules for fairness. The game that we've described, any chance that someone has that gives advantage that we don't like cheating, we need to have fairness rules. These would be like moving too early in a lineup, interfering with somebody from the wrong side of the horse, different things like that we're going to say are cheating, and we need to make fairness rules. Okay, now that we have a fair game that we've described, the only other thing that we really have to worry about, I think, is safety. So now we let these people go out and play this game, and nobody's cheating anymore, and we find places where people or horses could get hurt, or spectators, and we need to add rules to make sure that everyone stays safe. These were the only three categories that I could really put a reason for each rule in. So for me, it helps if I find a rule that doesn't fit one of these categories. Either it doesn't belong and it's unnecessary, or maybe we need a new category. But that's where I'm at so far. The other things, before I started looking at the rules individually, were what other truths about rules do we want as guidelines before we move forward. There are a couple. We don't want repetitive or redundant rules. I think the fewer rules, the better. So having a rule that's unnecessary should be omitted. I think the reason for that is it's just one more thing to add to a possible confusion. An example for this, in the IPC rulebook, one of the first rules says there's no limitation on the height of horses. So that's fine, but you're saying this rule says there's no rule. And so in that situation, I think we pull it out, omit things that are unnecessary. Another rule is they should be phrased in the negative. And this is kind of like a law rule. And what I mean by that is the rules should say you cannot do something. Rules get really unclear and easily misinterpreted whenever you say a player may do this. If you're giving a rule that says they can do something, either it needs to be pulled out or it needs to be rephrased to say they can't do something whenever possible, if it works. Okay, I think that's it for the general fundamentals. Then the next step that we did is we cut and paste every single rule from our rule book and put it on its own, and we describe which category of a rule it's in. We moved all the rules that describe the game to a separate section. There's reasons for this I can go on later on. IPC can decide their own, how they want to organize things. But after you've decided you want a code of conduct section and a standards of play and a rules of play, or whatever your categories are, you cut and paste each one of those rules into the categories to which they belong. That's easy. No rules have been changed. Now you go through each one of those categories and you recategorize anything, any similar rules. So you would recategorize maybe 5 or 6 rules that say out of bounds, and they're all the rules that have to do with something with the out of bounds would be all collected together. This is nice for people just to have as an organized rule book, but it's also good while we're figuring out which rules belong and don't, to see the rules that might conflict with each other or be redundant or repetitive. Once they're organized like that, you can see that there's one in the front and one at the back of the old book that are saying the same thing, and you can take some of that out. All right, so at this point, still no rule changes. All we've done is learned what rules should look like, and we've organized them into what the book should look like. There was one other thing, I think, as we start going. Actually, we'll get back to that. The first thing is now we want to look at the rules. We have them organized in, say, a horses section or a dangerous riding section, and we go through that section and we make sure that all of those rules are clear and they describe the game that we're currently playing. We don't want to change anything about how anybody's playing polocrosse. We just want to make sure that the words in the book describe what we want them to describe for the current status quo. As you're going through these rules and making them cleaner, we're going to use those fundamentals at the beginning. You know, does this rule belong? Should it be rephrased in a way that's in the negative, saying that shouldn't do something? We'll make sure that in the penalty section, any rules that have to do with fairness and have to do with safety, so any of the whistleable on the field rules have a penalty associated with it, so it's clear the progression of the penalties. And that brings up the last thing. Sometimes the word penalties and fouls can be interchanged when they shouldn't be. At least in my world, a foul is something bad that you've done. A penalty is an award that the other team gets to balance out your cheating. And so when we say the penalty section, that's a list of the things that you're allowed to award the other team. And all of the rules that you can break are fouls. What I just had to do there was explain a definition that makes things in the book clearer. And we found numerous places where this was one of our major problems. People would misinterpret the phrasing of a rule because it would say a string of words that is different than what they use, and it added confusion. So making a definition section at the beginning of the book that references any of the key vocabulary terminologies, something like a chukka or riding off or bumping or things like that, might need a specific, over here we think bumping is this or a sandwich is this or whatever it is. It all needs definitions, and they all need to agree with each other so we're speaking the same language. After that, you can publish it and put it out. And now you have organized and revised, made it more clear, given definitions, made sure the penalties were clear, but not changed anything in the game. And you've done your job. The rule's fixed. The last step in this whole process is making something that continually corrects your work and adjusts for the change in the play of the game. So what we've done is, after every tournament, an IPC would be after every test match or World Cup or whatever, there is a list of suggestions or a list of things that we found, people misinterpreted this set of rules, or these people are umpiring harshly on this set of rules, but over here, not, and you can make adjustments as you go. And then every year, the rules come out again with any of the minor adjustments to clean up any of the things that we missed on the first go around. And then this is just a continually revolving door of corrections that if anything is broken with the rules, it already has a means of action to heal itself, and it hopefully doesn't have problems ever again. Okay, so that is my suggestion on what we should do with the IPC rulebook, and that is how we kind of got through the hurdles that we had about 10 years ago with the APA rulebook. Good luck. I hope everybody gets behind the IPC changing the rules, because they need it, and it's going to be hard if people aren't behind it. So Chief Ump out. Have a great day.